All right. Sasha, please take down the share screen, and Adam, you can kick us off.
All right, well, thank you so much. I want to welcome everybody here who's joining us for this very important meeting to prepare ourselves for the second and final public hearing on the budget. We have a very quick, just about 25-30-minute agenda. We're going to hear very soon from Councilmember Kshama Sawant, who's going to provide us some critical political context for today's public hearing. We're going to hear also from Jonathan Rosenblum in our office, who's also going to kind of go through a lot of the people's budget demands and really help us as a movement orient ourselves as we make our demands on the city council. And then, of course, we're going to end by having another council staff person, Nick Jones, show us and literally walk us through how to sign up for public comment. The public comment sign up period is going to open up at 3:30 on the dot or around there. So we're going to be refreshing together. And right when Nick Jones shows everybody how to sign up, hopefully everybody can do that so that we'll be able to make a big people's budget demand splash at the very start of this public hearing. Again, we don't have a whole lot of time. So without too much further ado, why don't I go ahead and pass it over to Councilmember Kshama Sawant, who's going to give us some political context to this very important people's budget prep meeting. So Kshama, if you're able, please take it from here.
Thank you, Adam. And as Adam said, we don't have much time, so I don't want to hold up our next steps too much. Well, one is, as Adam was saying, Nick will walk everyone through the public comment sign up and also just talk about how we can do public comment in general. I think every single person who speaks in the public hearing, their voice is extremely critical because it's not just that one voice. If we have hundreds of voices demanding something that our communities, that working people and marginalized people need, our homeless neighbors need, our young people and elderly need, then our voices together matter a whole lot, because that puts pressure, that puts collective organized pressure on a political establishment that is inherently hostile to our needs, even though you often hear them using rhetoric that sounds like they are on our side. But in reality, the budget that has been passed down by the mayor and the budget that will be passed by the city council, because now we've seen this for 6 years, will be a budget that is business as usual unless we fight for our needs. And this is what this community meeting is about. Jonathan will be going through some of the details of what we are fighting for. And those details are important, not because we want to drown each public comment in details, but in being very clear what we are demanding, who's on our side and who's not. That is going to be clarified in that PowerPoint slide that Jonathan will run through, because that's very important. When we organize a political struggle like the people's budget, like the Justice for George Floyd movement, right? Like the movement that is coming up, that is being organized by renters nationwide to cancel rent, because we know the moratoriums will expire. And we know that will lead to a tsunami of evictions. How do we actually have an impact? By making it very clear what we are demanding, but also by understanding who's actually on our side. We know that hundreds of thousands of people in the Seattle region, ordinary people, are on our side. But who's not on our side is big business, the police department's officials, the major bureaucrats who run many of the big business connections with the political establishment, and the political establishment itself is not inherently on our side. So how do we fight for our rights? What we have done year after year through the people's budget is organize ordinary people's voices together to win something collectively. And we have shown it through actually winning struggles. We have shown again and again that this strategy works. And that is why we are in strong solidarity with the solidarity budget that's demanding defunding the police and demanding that the Green New Deal be funded. The people's budget is absolutely fighting for the Green New Deal to be funded, for community control over the police, and that there are no budget cuts on us. Make big business pay for this recession and this pandemic, not ordinary working people. Working people are fed up with being on the hook for the crisis that was created by the billionaire class and by their capitalist system. So we refuse to pay for this crisis. Big business should pay for this crisis. The pandemic profiteers should pay for this crisis. Increase the Amazon tax to fund all our social needs, to fund the Green New Deal, and stop all budget cuts. So I will stop it at there, and I look forward to a dynamic public hearing tonight.
All right, thank you, Kshama, for those words and that context. Yeah, it is, of course, so critical that we are fighting for these people's budget demands and against this really cruel, vicious austerity budget that's put forward by Mayor Durkan. And just at a time, of course, when we see several big businesses, including Amazon, including Microsoft, really profiting, making just exorbitant and shameful profits in a context of so many working people suffering, and then especially these vicious cuts to the programs and departments which working people rely on for the day-to-day. We're gonna, as we indicated before, keep it going pretty quickly so that we're done by 3:30 and we're able, all of us, to sign up for the public comment for the budget hearing, which of course starts at 5:30. So let's go ahead. If Jonathan Rosenblum is gonna walk us through some of those details about the specific people's budget demands, and also note some of the communities and the organizations, the individuals who are fighting for these demands, alongside, of course, Councilmember Kshama Sawant's office and the many activists we've fought with for years. So Jonathan, if you could take it from here, please do.
Thank you, Adam. And give me a thumbs up if you can hear. We'll go through this very quickly. As Adam and Kshama noted, we have a 3:30 date with signing up for public comment. Many of you, I'm sure, have already been involved in people's budget activities over the last few weeks. And as you know, it takes a movement. What I want to do is highlight very clearly what the choices are that the city council faces, and choices that we really have to bring to them very clearly with our statements tonight. The question before the city is, who is paying for this pandemic and recession? Is it going to be big business or working people? The mayor has an austerity proposal under which working people will pay for the pandemic and the recession. Our people's budget demand makes big business pay so we can get the urgent needs of the communities met. The mayor's austerity proposal will cut $30 million that she promised last year for a strategic investment fund to address displacement. It cuts $49 million from affordable housing, and it continues the cruel sweeps of our homeless neighbors. Our people's budget demands, on the other hand, would invest $12 million in new tiny house villages run by groups like Lehigh, Share, and Wheel, would maintain our 24-hour basic shelters, would build a new hygiene center in Belltown, would purchase a Holiday Inn in North Seattle for shelter and long-term supportive housing, and would do this in part by funding new affordable housing by increasing the tax on Amazon that our movement won just this past summer. And I do want to note that just in the last few days, we've been working with Africatown Community Land Trust and other community members to put forward this new demand that the city invest $13.8 million in buying what used to be the Cairo Care Center on Yesler and establishing new community-owned affordable housing run by Africatown. Now, we've been working with a number of groups in this. Lehigh, Share, Wheel, Nicholsville have all been deeply involved and are going to continue to be involved working with our people's budget movement in the coming weeks. Next up, we know the mayor's austerity proposal continues to protect big business from having to pay their share of taxes by not increasing the Amazon tax rate. Our people's budget demand funds social needs by increasing the Amazon tax that our movement fought so hard for, that you all fought so hard for, and that we won in a historic victory just this past summer. Now, I do want to note that both the solidarity budget proposal and the people's budget are demanding that housing, restorative justice, and the Green New Deal get funded. All things that working people in marginalized communities need. But so far, Councilmember Sawant is the only elected representative who who has actually put forward a proposal to increase the Amazon tax to actually fund these vital community needs. The mayor's austerity proposal would cut funding for libraries, parks, roads, and community centers. It would close down libraries, pools, community centers, and so on. Our people's budget demand would fully fund libraries, parks, roads, and community centers by increasing the Amazon tax. Additionally, the mayor's austerity proposal, I should say it's an austerity proposal for all of us except for the police. It will protect the bloated police budget. Our people's budget demand is to defund SPD by 50% to fund urgent community needs and to take steps to establish an elected community oversight board over the police with hire and fire responsibilities and subpoena power. We also would transfer the community service officers out of the Seattle Police Department. Next up, the mayor's austerity budget proposal would let the emergency food program, which has benefited tens of thousands of working class households, she would let it expire in April. People would starve, literally. Our people's budget demand is to fund the emergency food program through the end of 2021 and to expand it to include ethnic grocery stores so working people can shop wherever they like to. Also, our people's budget demand calls for fully funding the Vietnamese Senior Association and other community congregate meal programs. The mayor's austerity proposal would leave tenants to fight their battles on their own against big landlords. And as you know, we're facing a tsunami of evictions once the current moratoriums expire. Our people's budget demand, on the other hand, would fund $500,000 for tenant education and organizing. And we've been working very closely with the tenants union and with Be Seattle on this, along with other tenant activists in various buildings. It would fund eviction defense attorneys. We've been working with the Housing Justice Project very closely on this demand. And we would cancel utility payments for renters who've lost income under COVID. I would say we are very happy to be working with the cancel rent, cancel mortgage movement that is just growing in Washington State and indeed throughout the country. And it's a demand we need to continue raising up, and we're doing it with our cancel utility payment demand in the people's budget. And then finally, we would take steps in the people's budget toward creating standard leases for tenants in the city and transferable background checks so that tenants are not paying every time they apply to go to get an apartment. They don't have to pay for a new background check. Additionally, the mayor's austerity proposal would cut funding for the Green New Deal Oversight Board, and it does not fund any of the sort of building electrification, weatherization projects that our community has been demanding. And we've been working very closely with 350 Seattle, unions like the UAW 4121, and other community and environmental groups, urban natives, and so on, Mazaska Talks, to say we need to invest in the Green New Deal in this budget. And our people's budget demand adds $20 million for building weatherization and electrification projects so that working people can get their homes upgraded and we can go green on electricity. Secondly, we would restore the funding that the mayor cut for the Green New Deal Oversight Board. And thirdly, we would restore funding for the City Light Conservation Program, which the mayor also cut in her austerity budget. Now, the mayor also continues to ignore longstanding demands from the community, from the urban native community, and we would, in our people's budget demand, also advance funding the safety crosswalk for the Duwamish Longhouse, because right now people have to cross a very busy street to get to the Longhouse. It's very dangerous. And we would add funding for cultural signage at Licton Springs and make sure that funding for Indigenous Peoples Day is democratically controlled from this point forward. And again, both the Solidarity budget and the People's budget are advocating for Green New Deal funding. 2 council members have joined Councilmember Sawant's Green New Deal proposals, and we're calling on all the council members now to join in supporting these proposals and to really support the Green New Deal and fight the mayor's austerity plan. Now, the mayor's proposal, and I have to say most city council members' position so far, is to have no proposal at all on defunding the police. not even by anything close to 50%, and no proposal for community control over the police. Our people's budget demand, in stark contrast, calls for defunding the police by at least $170 million, that's 50%, and use that money to fund community-led programs and affordable housing. Additionally, our people's budget is demanding that the city take urgent steps to set up community control over police. And while this isn't a big budget item dollars-wise, it is a significant issue that our community has been fighting for and that we need to advance in this budget season. We need to take steps to create an elected community oversight board with full powers over the police department. And again, I'm going to hand this back to Nick and Adam at this point, but sign up for public comment begins at 3:30 p.m. here. Again, our question to the council members tonight has to be, who is going to pay for this pandemic and the recession? Is it big business or working people? We need a people's budget. Thank you. Back to you now.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for going through that. And obviously it's a lot of information to go through very quickly. In just a few minutes, we're going to go to Nick, who's going to, again, walk us through signing up for this this public hearing that's going to start at 5:30. It's important, of course, to note that this public hearing, it's the final public hearing, but it is by no means the last date that we as a people's budget movement are going to need to fight around. Just one thing to point out, and I know we're working on finalizing stuff around the Facebook event, but on November 18th, it is likely going to be the next date where there will be critical budget votes. Those have the possibility of taking place starting at 9 a.m. So we're going to share a Facebook event, if not now, then very soon, for a 7 a.m. watch party. Now, if things change, we'll of course update people in the people's budget movement. But November 18th is when critical votes are going to be taking place. Obviously, in the period, the next 3 weeks till then, we're going to have a lot of organizing work to do. I want to thank the communities that have already been working so hard on this people's budget movement and around these demands that Jonathan just laid out so succinctly and so starkly in contrast to the austerity budget we see from the mayor. We've had clergy circulating a letter that, in my understanding, has between 150 to 200 signers on at this point. Community members from Seattle, clergy members, especially from the Black and Brown community, demanding accountability, real accountability to community from the police, demanding that big business be taxed and that communities' needs be funded and that Amazon and other big businesses be made to pay for that. We've seen the real active support of the progressive unions in this town, in particular UAW, who themselves is circulating a letter basically saying we fought for and won as a movement this Amazon tax, and now we can add to that Amazon tax in order to avoid these brutal cuts. Of course, folks from Nicholsville year in, year out have fought for increased funding for tiny house villages, for basic needs for the homeless community, and that's no different this year. We've seen hundreds of emails from those folks and their supporters to council members calling on them to vote for this people's budget demands, to fund tiny house village, to fund 24-hour services. We've heard, of course, from urban native communities who, again, for years have been fighting around Indigenous Peoples Day demands. We see the demand for Duwamish Longhouse, but also demands around the environment. The need to fund $20 million for Green New Deal funding. Other communities, renters fighting for funding, Tenants Union of Washington State. And then, of course, we've seen individuals, if folks were able to see the People's Budget Town Hall, Castile Hightower making a very poignant argument for why funding for mental health services could have prevented the death of her brother in 2004, Herbert Hightower. And then, of course, the need for real accountability when police do take the life of a person in crisis. And we, of course, need to fight for those things. So I want to thank all the communities that have been involved, and especially those who are listening right here. We're just 5 minutes out from when the public comment period should be opening up. So I think it's time right now to turn it back to Nick Jones, who's going to show us how to sign up. And of course, we want to remember, as we make the case to council for why we need the demands that the people's budget are raising, we want to make sure that we as a community are identifying ourselves not just as individuals, but as members of this people's budget movement, as members of our community, our neighborhood organizations, and also giving appreciation to the movement's council member, Kshama Sawant, who is continually coming under attack for putting forward these demands. So we want to situate the individual public comment within the movement that we're a part of. And that really terrifies, that really puts the pressure on council. So without further ado, Nick, why don't you go ahead and show us how to sign up? And everybody watching from home should also open up the windows that Nick is going to be talking about. Click refresh a bunch of times, because the earlier we sign up, the earlier we're able to give public comment, the more we can establish this narrative for a people's budget and our demands. So go ahead, Nick, show us how to do that, please.
All right, thank you, Adam, for that great introduction. If people just hold on one moment here. And hopefully this process, this point, is somewhat familiar to folks who have been part of the budget fights through the summer, through the fall, demanding the council defund SPD to really reinvest in communities of color and community control of the police. So what you want to really do to be able to sign up, or what you need to do, is find this webpage. It's not quite live yet, but hopefully folks have done this before. I usually just find it very easily by typing in Seattle public comment. In any search bar, it should be right at the top here, this .gov URL. And folks should just click that, and we'll probably be hanging out for a little bit here as we wait for the final form to go live. You'll see it's 2 hours before the public comment or the public hearing tonight at 5:30. I'm just going to sit at this for a second and make sure we refresh things. And I just even want to, until the form becomes live, and I even want to just echo what Adam was saying a little while ago. As folks sign up for public comment, I think now is a really good time for us to kind of chew on what we want to bring before the council. Everything Adam said and everything in that presentation that Jonathan laid out earlier, I think will be essential for us making the strongest public comment. And definitely, if folks are part of a union or a community organization or a neighborhood group or a political group, we want to bring that into the public comment to let the council know that you are not, that you represent on behalf of wider layers of the city who are fighting for these things that working class people, marginalized people across our city need. And that is super important. It really brings to bear, the full weight of our organization as everyday people, which is really our strongest tool, is our collective solidarity, as Adam was saying. And that solidarity is quintessential for, in our experience, winning the things we've won, like tiny house villages, like funding for Indigenous people stay in the past, like the Amazon tax that was won over the summer. And even all of those efforts were essential to stopping council from rolling back even the small gains that were won, or the gains that were won over the summer when the mayor tried to roll all of these things back. And so that just, I think, is demonstrative about why we have to continue this fight. We're still waiting on things to go live here. It is only 3:29, so it should be any moment now. This form should go live. Folks who aren't already there, definitely go search public comment, find this page. Oh, okay. And just hopefully folks are just hitting refresh with me as we go through this together, and I'm happy to show folks how to exactly fill this out. It should be 3:30 now, so this is the moment we've been waiting for. Mine is still not live. It might be live on other people's. If it is live, there should be a form right here at the bottom of the page. You should start, please, filling that out right away. If you're able to fill it out first, you'll be able to hopefully give public comment very quickly. This is a public hearing, so the council is required to really hear all of our voices. This is why this is such an important event, for us to weigh in on the budget as a movement, as everyday people across Seattle. If you get this form live, you should sign up immediately. Certainly Of course, if you have to wait a little bit, you might have to wait a little longer later in the public hearing. But your voice matters, and I really encourage everyone, if you're able to sign up, to really do everything you can to stay on the line through the public hearing to be able to get your voice in at some point tonight. And everyone should have 2 minutes. Oh, we found it. So your page should look like this now. Fill out this form to your best, to just fill it out completely if you can. Really importantly, you want to use an email address you have ready access to. They're going to send a link, a Zoom link, to whatever email address you put in here with information about how to get yourself on the call when the public hearing is in full effect later. And they're going to call you in the roll call depending on which phone number you put into this box. So it's very important you use correct and accurate email and phone number right here in the form. The rest, fill out according to your personal information. Click this for this part. You really put whatever you want. You could say defund SPD, or we need a people's budget, and then just hit submit. This should be an email sent right to your inbox. Folks should absolutely do that right now if you haven't already. Hopefully the public comment link has been posted in the chats, whatever way you're viewing the stream. So that hopefully everyone is signed up now for public comment to really bring your voice into the public hearing that will happen later this evening. And with that, I will send it back to Adam. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nick. And yeah, I know that there's a lot of people watching this who hopefully have all now had a chance to sign up. As we mentioned, we posted links, for the November 18th critical budget votes coming up. Obviously, keep your eyes and ears open. We're going to be all those communities that I mentioned earlier. We're going to be working with to varying degrees to continue organizing, continue building this pressure. And also, for those who want the information that Jonathan relayed in his presentation, the link for that should be posted as well. And of course, after signing up for public comment, the public hearing starts at 5:30. To the extent that you're able, watch, hear from other community members about the demands we're fighting for, and of course, be ready to give powerful public comment yourself. Without anything more to say, I again want to thank all the community members that are present right now, and really, we've got 3 weeks to fight for a budget that addresses the need of ordinary working people and taxes big business, the billionaires, in order to do it. We are fighting against a vicious austerity budget this year, fighting against a budget which continues to bloat a Seattle Police Department budget, which has been bloated for years, neglecting the needs of Black and Brown communities. So again, thank you all for joining today. Thanks for joining the People's Budget Fight, and let's continue fighting for a budget that actually serves our needs. Solidarity. And the seattlechannel.org is where you'll want to watch that public hearing. So thank you so much.